and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where everyone is wondering, did things get better for Captain America 4 in its second weekend? Well, I think the issue is that things are kind of continuing as they were last week, so it really depends on how you felt about Captain America's opening weekend. The movie remains divisive, not just about how people felt about it, but about how it's performing. If you're trying to be optimistic, you can still see some optimism in the tea leaves. But if you feel things started out not great, they're still not going great. I went to the not great camp largely because of the cinema score. The cinema score is so bad that I don't think that is something that the movie can recover from. I think it speaks to not just the film, but how people are feeling about, not just fans, but moviegoers in general are feeling about Marvel overall right now. And also Quantumania. Quantumania, in my opinion, I think this is following an extremely similar path in so many ways. I guess very few people defend Quantumania. And, again, I thought Captain America 4 was a fun popcorn movie, but I watched Falcon and Winter Soldier. So let's discuss. So yes, Captain America Brave New World did not drop as much in its second weekend as the Marvels or even Quantumania. And a second weekend drop in the 60s, even the high 60s, is not unusual for a big blockbuster movie. But Captain America 4 is not shaping up to be a big blockbuster movie. The reason a big blockbuster can drop so much in its second weekend is it can afford to. It made a ton of money in its opening weekend, so of course it drops significantly. That was not the case for Captain America Brave New World. As I said, Quantumania is the pace bunny, as it opened the exact same holiday weekend in February 2 years ago. It opened bigger, and its second weekend gross, despite having dropped more, was higher. At the end of its second weekend, Quantumania domestically was at 167, whereas Cap 4 is only at 141. And it doesn't seem like the overseas box office is coming to rescue it either. Globally, Captain America Brave New World is at a little under 300 million. But it's dropping quickly, despite no real competition in the marketplace. Quantumania had more competition in its second weekend. There was Seabear, and then also a faith-based film that did solid business. So those two movies, Quantumania. And Captain America Brave New World only had one movie come out really against it, which opened lower than Seabear did. And still, Quantumania never rebounded with a slightly better cinema score. So I think it does not look good. I mean, if you want to make the positive case, go ahead, but I don't see a lot of evidence for you. So I'm still predicting that Captain America Brave New World will end its global run at under 500 million in Quantumania territory. So this, of course, begs the question, or I guess the reevaluation of what kind of year is Marvel going to have? I'm starting to be concerned. Post-Endgame has been brutal, with the most successful films, the ones that had strong outside creative partnership, let's say. Sony with No Way Home. Looks like they do contribute something, although they had an easy slam dunk bringing back the OG Spider-Man. And then also, of course, Ryan Reynolds was a significant factor in Deadpool and Wolverine. He doesn't just love Deadpool the way Tom Hiddleston loves Loki. Ryan Reynolds has legit control as not just the star, but at least a writer on set and a producer. So that's a big difference. And even the stronger MCU performers on their own are viewed as disappointments by fans in terms of quality. And they lagged behind their pre-Endgame preceding installments. So they did better than the other MCU movies that have been coming out, but not as well as the previous. I guess Multiverse of Madness certainly performed better than Doctor Strange, but that should have been it's almost $1 billion movie, but it has a lot of flaws. So now, of course, one could argue, hey, the pandemic, the strikes, and going off of Marvel Now was a horrible combination. I mean, you don't have to argue that. It was a horrible combination. But is that their only problem, right? And is it a surmountable problem? They have two upcoming Avengers movies right around the corner at this point with the return of Robert Downey Jr. and the Russo brothers. So maybe Marvel will be able to get back on track with those two movies. But how much damage will be done at that point? It's a legit question, and it's a concerning question, but one we're going to find out the answer to, because baby, we're barreling down this highway. So 2023 was a particularly bad year for the MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 aside, although that was James Gunn's last Marvel movie before departing to head up the competition. With the huge success of Deadpool and Wolverine, some Marvel fans argue very aggressively that Marvel was back, baby, while the rest of us were like, we're not so sure. We think it's largely attributable to Ryan Reynolds, who's in the Deadpool business, not the Marvel business. Although Marvel is clearly trying to duplicate some of his brilliant marketing ideas that he brought to the table for Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is also releasing during Comic-Con weekend this year. And sure enough, the first trailer, while it didn't debut during the Super Bowl, they already messed it up. Deadpool's first trailer came out during the Super Bowl, but the first trailer came out a couple of days before the Super Bowl. But will they get the same results? James Gunn fans, speaking of James Gunn, have been sharing some interesting tracking information from a company called The Quorum. I've never heard of The Quorum. I was like, who are these people? So I looked it up, and they do get referenced in the trade. So they seem somewhat legit. Superman is at the top of these charts in terms of awareness, interest, and pay to watch instead of wait to watch for free. Obviously, like on a streaming service or something like that is what it means. So yeah, that's why these charts were being shared. And it's interesting that not only is Superman at the top, but the Jurassic World Rebirth is right behind it. People love them dinos. They love the dinos. And Disney, by the way, does have some good news here, in that Lilo and Stitch is also very high on these charts. And it looks like they might have a big Memorial Day weekend blockbuster brewing there. But take a look at this fear-free chart. And again, I don't know how legit these charts are, but I was very surprised when I saw this. And the two Marvel movies were at the bottom. This is the chart as to whether or not you're willing to pay for the movie or you'll wait to watch it for free. The bottom! I mean, these scores, to be fair, on this chart, particularly towards the bottom, are all very close together, but still, according to this chart, the MCU movies appear to be 10 points behind Superman and Jurassic World Rebirth. Now, The Quorum is new to us. We didn't even know who they were until just a few seconds ago. We don't really know their track record in terms of predictability, and we're still a couple of months out, particularly from Fantastic Four. But what if Marvel, what if Marvel has another bad year, man? Oh my God. I continue to argue that it's Disney Plus's fault. I mean, those other things are a problem as well, but I think Disney Plus is a big part of the problem here. We've been discussing this. Marvel is starting to already make some Disney Plus moves, as we discussed on the live stream on Friday. But for instance, today, video game creator turned part-time influencer, he's drunk with power, Hideo Kojima says that he found Captain America Brave New World to be confusing because he didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier. Kojima is one of us, you're right? One of us. So the fact that he didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was one of the earliest Marvel Disney Plus shows when these things were like all the rage, that's to me what's the most shocking about his tweet. I'm like, what, you don't have enough time or something? How did you not watch Falcon and Winter Soldier? He's like the prime audience. Oh my God. It's like one of you or me saying we didn't bother to watch it. If you didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, you didn't really see Sam becoming Cap, as Kojima says. He's like, when did he become Cap? He said he vaguely remembered Sam getting the shield at Endgame. I'm like, dude, do you not like Marvel or something? Maybe we should take that into account. I mean, it's seared into my brain, but I cover these things, so I'm looking at that picture all the time. But anyway, and you didn't get introduced, and if you didn't watch the show, you never met Falcon or Isaiah Bradley, who are huge parts of the new movie. Also, you don't really know about Sam and Bucky's friendship, which went a long way into, furthering both their stories. On that note, Thunderbolts is also heavily reliant on Disney Plus viewership. But Fantastic Four, brand new story. It's even in its own universe. So hopefully you should be able to go into that completely cold. I know some of the Incredibles comparison really annoys a lot of you, but I'm curious to see if the general public makes that comparison. Again, whoever gets there first, baby. And also, I would have gone futuristic with Fantastic Four, to be honest with you, instead of, cannibalizing their own content with The Incredibles. What approach would you have taken for the Fantastic Four? All right, and also apparently it's now very easy to watch these movies for free on Disney Plus. Disney Plus has such strong branding that it seems audiences will spend their entertainment dollars on other movie tickets and digital purchases while just waiting for Disney content to hit Disney Plus. What do? What's your strategy? Although it's worth noting that at the end of 2024, when they reported on their last quarter, Disney had to say that they lost 700,000 subscribers to Disney Plus, which is substantial. The consensus is that it came from the price hikes, password sharing crackdown, and less original content. That's true. Most of Disney Plus's non-Marvel and Star Wars original content, which is having a rough time, comes from Hulu, which you can get through the Disney Plus portal only if you have the bundle or subscribe to both. But interestingly, subscribing to just Hulu, that went up by 1.6 million subscribers. So crazy. Did anyone here decide they only needed Hulu and not Disney Plus? I'm a big Disney fan, as many of you know. Not having Disney Plus seems like something that's just not an option to me. But and it used to be something that most people would feel is not an option. And we'll talk about studio fans a little bit later in this very episode. But that more and more people are thinking they don't have to have a direct link to Disney in their home is like very shocking and scary to me. And should be scary to Disney. Do you plan to see Thunderbolts and or Fantastic Four in theaters? Suddenly this is a question that maybe we have to ask. Or maybe some of you are reconsidering. That's crazy. Because you know what? You might decide at this point to hold out for your next Marvel movie ticket to be for Avengers Doomsday, which is just about a year away at this point. I'm amazed they're going to make that date. That seems like a very quick turnaround to me. They're getting ready to shoot any day now. A picture of the set being built. Well, it's just a crane popping out of a giant box in the UK has been making the rounds online. But that movie cannot be delayed. That movie needs to come out next summer. I think Marvel's future is very much reliant on it. Because also Marvel movies are dependent on superfans seeing them multiple times in theaters. For instance, let me ask you another question. How many times did you see Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters? And how many times have you seen or are you planning to see Captain America 4 in theaters? The big problem is that for the lesser films, Marvel fans will head out and see it once, sometimes multiple times in a single weekend. But for the lesser films, they go, okay, I saw it. I can wait to see it again until I can watch it. No extra cost on Disney Plus. All right, so just like Seabear challenged Quantumania in 2023, the Monkey challenged Captain America Brave New World in its second weekend and proved to be less of a threat. Seabear opened on par with Osgood Perkins' breakout hit Longlegs, while the Monkey came in much lower. The trades are trying to make it look like it was a big opening. Let's discuss. All right, so both movies skewed male, and the Monkey actually has better diversity demos. But it seems the problem here was Mr. Theo James. Back with Longlegs, exit polls showed that Nicolas Cage and even Micah Monroe, thanks to their previous work in the horror genre, drove some audience interest. But Theo James, as good as he is in the movie, the man just doesn't sell tickets. It's like, there might not be movie stars anymore, but actors still do help in terms of interest in whether or not a movie's worth seeing in theaters and promotions, etc. I guess there are now like mini movie stars, and maybe more of them, maybe? I don't know, but I'd be curious to how you would describe it. But it clearly makes a difference. And by the way, Neon didn't even put Theo James on the poster. He didn't even put him on the poster. Instead, they name-dropped Perkins, James Wan, and Stephen King. And Wan and King didn't help. They did very little to promote the film, if anything. Stephen King put out this one photo of him holding the monkey. I think it was the popcorn tin, the popcorn box, in fact. But by the way, Stephen King, though, he just got back on X, partially to promote this movie, I wonder. But, he is very, very political. And one has to wonder if maybe that influenced, the appeal of his adaptations as well. Interesting. Did that affect any of you going to see The Monkey? They didn't really play up the Stephen King angle, though. Both movies have been divisive, Longlegs and The Monkey. But Longlegs had slightly more critical buzz to it, pushing it along. And Longlegs ended up having legs. It actually did extremely well, considering, how inexpensive it was. But it seems The Monkey is not going to get to the same heights. But Neon, I'm sure they're happy, especially as they didn't spend a lot to advertise the movie. They rely mostly on, very organic digital campaigns. And then also the movie again, was very inexpensive to make. That's why studios love horror movies. They're cheap to make. You don't have to advertise them as much. Fans do a lot of the work for you. And this is still Neon's second biggest opening ever as a mini studio, with Longlegs their biggest. So they're still very happy being in the Osgood Perkins business. And they're going to continue with that. Because, he has another movie that's coming out next year called Keeper, and the trailer played at the end of some screenings of The Monkey as like a surprise for fans. He did a social media thing saying you should stick around, but he released it after the Thursday night showing, so a lot of fans, I think that was not cool. I mean, I didn't stick around. I didn't know it. If you're going to make that kind of announcement, do it like Tuesday or Wednesday, man. All right, so... by the way, also, even though The Monkey didn't open at the level of Longlegs, it still did a lot better than any of the other horror films so far this year. Now, Neon used to be largely an awards-driven studio, but like A24, they're trying to see if they can now break out into the commercial space, and they're doing that by amassing fan bases. People are like, I love A24 films. I'll see whatever they put out. Now, Neon wants you to say, oh, I love Neon. What are they doing? And by the way, Neon didn't really make the monkey available to critics in advance. That's why most of the reviews, I didn't get a chance to go, but there was a week early screening, so some reviews dropped at that point. But most of the reviews for the monkey dropped on Friday, as you might have noticed, which I think was an odd choice. I mean, the reviews aren't great, but I think it would have helped with awareness and I think getting a couple more people into the theater. I think that was a mistake on Neon's part for a movie like this. But anyway, it's interesting that as smaller studios, right, the mini studios develop fan bases, which works for them. You're kind of seeing fans make decisions on major studios, right? For instance, in the Disney political wars, a lot of people who are deciding that they're not happy with Disney are actively throwing their support behind who they perceive to be Disney's competitor. And now they're saying that's Universal, not Warner Brothers, which is also very interesting. So Universal, of course, is not so quietly coming for the mouse, not just in the movie space, but also they're opening their Epic Universe theme park this summer in Orlando, with the goal to be the top theme park destination in Orlando over Disney's 4 theme parks. Everyone's saying Disney needs a 5th gate. We'll see how this develops. It's very interesting. We'll see if Epic Universe is that big of a game changer. And I think there is a chance that it is. People are very excited about that park. Let's see how long the lines are and how hard it is to get into and what the price point is. That's, Universal has the worst lines. So that could be an area where it becomes difficult. Although everybody's having problems with lines these days and paying for front of the line access now. I mean, Universal always did that, but it's a very much higher price point. So less people have that front of the line pass. What do you think of the way both parks handle lines currently? All right, now Disney, of course, before Ron DeSantis and Kathleen Kennedy, they had a ton of fans that were loyal to the studio itself. Disney, in fact, was the first studio to have its own fan base, right? And it'll be interesting to see if maybe in these days, more and more studios see if they can do it. If Universal will become even more aggressive in that regard. Instead of usually in the past, studios have left it up to the franchises they own or distribute to win them fans. Although on that note, Warner Brothers used to have a loyal following, very loyal. They were the OG antithesis to Disney. Or if you just wanted a change of pace from Disney. But all the DC drama has chipped away at that, and some would argue hacked away at it. As to the rest of the top 10, Dogman and Mufasa are clearly undercutting poor Paddington, which had they should have opened Paddington, I think, during the holidays. But I guess they didn't want to be in the way of Moana. But I'm curious, I went to see it again actually yesterday. Big, huge crowd, my theater at least. But it's not doing as well as the previous films. It had the biggest second weekend drop of the trilogy to date. And 2 foreign films, China's Neza 2 and India's Chava, were able to both place in the top 10. Neza 2 managed to stay pretty high up in its second weekend. Usually foreign language films will be in the top 10 for 1 week, but this is 2. But still, it had a 60% drop, and I don't think that it's going to do nearly as well here, obviously, as it is done in China. Also, despite Zachary Levi's pandering to the far right, even they didn't want to see his new movie. Although, speaking of conservatives, this is a Lionsgate movie. But Angel Studios, who was behind Sound of Freedom, they've never been able to repeat that success. In Sound of Freedom, a lot of that box office came from donations. They used a donation strategy. Buy a ticket for someone else. That person nobody even has to claim that ticket. But people like donated money to that film's box office. But Angel Studios has never been able to duplicate that. But they are trying to have it help legitimize them. For instance, at CinemaCon, which is coming up in April, the beginning of April, Angel Studios will present for the second time ever. They debuted at CinemaCon last year. And I wanted to bring that up because I do think that you are going to see some, I think that, especially with the success of, Taylor Sheridan's corner of Paramount, I do think you're going to see, it depends how quickly Hollywood can pivot, but I do think you're going to see some change in Hollywood because of what's going on currently. All right, I don't know if it's going to come from Angel Studios. I think it's more likely to come from people like Taylor Sheridan. All right, so over on streaming for late January, wow, these are incredible numbers for The Night Agent Season 2. Like, wow, it has just exploded over on Netflix, according to Nielsen's charts. We've been seeing The Night Agent doing very well on Netflix's own charts the past few weeks, and so has The Recruit. They've been back to back. And so The Recruit came out, Season 2 as well, came out 1 week after The Night Agent. So I'll be curious to see how Nielsen's charts look next week when they're both in play over here as well. There's only 4 pieces of original content on this overall chart, and they're all Netflix. Everything else is acquired content. On the originals chart, there's Landman still doing very well as a binge, now 2 weeks after it wrapped its first season. Word of mouth is really helping this show. As I told you before, watched it after the fact as a binge. Love the show. Love it, love it, love it. Well, Severance, which I also love, with its second season, is continuing to grow impressively with its own viewership. Both of these, by the way, are weekly releases. And I hear in Hollywood itself, these are the 2 shows that everyone's watching right now. The context of the conversation is, even though The White Lotus Season 3 opened pretty good. I mean, it's not on any of these charts yet, but it opened bigger than the previous White Lotus seasons. I heard most people in Hollywood right now are watching Landman and Severance and are planning to get to White Lotus Season 3 when they finish with those. But that's not good for White Lotus because I think they want to hook you before you get to some of the later developments in the season, which are going to be controversial. All right, so anyway, there was a headline this week that Severance has become Apple TV's most watched show, topping Ted Lasso. And many of you were like, how can this be? As there's only been 1.5 seasons of Severance and 3 whole seasons of Ted Lasso. Well, that's because streaming continues to be measured in minutes, not views, at least according to this headline. Some people do, like Netflix has moved to views because they have to pay dividends and because the numbers are publicly released. And so they want to do the more palatable number to them. All right, so the reason Severance was able to surpass Ted Lasso is that I didn't even remember this. The first 2 seasons of Ted Lasso, the episodes were under 30 minutes, which makes, by the way, shows that have episodes that are under 30 minutes are very bingeable. They're very, very strong binges. But Ted Lasso, in fact, people complain that season 3, the episodes got a lot longer. But Severance, right out of the gate, was 45 to 60-minute episodes. So that's how Severance was able to surpass Ted Lasso. Great show! Love the show. Very excited to see how season 2 ends. Reality show The Traitors and Beast Games, those 2 shows also continue to be able to chart. Then with movies, not too much happening here. Pretty quiet over here. Once again, The Wild Robot hit Peacock. It seems everyone who wanted to see it had already seen it at this point in theaters or on digital. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest either for the new Star Trek movie over on Paramount Plus, even though Oscar winner Michelle Yeoh is the new captain. With Netflix's charts, the final season of Cobra Kai, all 3 parts of it, they just can't get people interested. Makes me a little worried about the upcoming Karate Kid movie this summer. Although, based on those quorum charts, it's tracking higher than some other movies. But the 3rd part just dropped for these charts, and it only was able to be at 2nd place instead of getting to 1st place. Meanwhile, The Night Agent and The Recruit both fell in the wake of real-life military drama docuseries Surviving Black Hawk Down. Weekly shows, WWE Raw, now joined by Love is Blind, seem to be workhorses instead of show ponies. But hey, everybody needs, you need a diverse portfolio, a diverse slate, and Netflix seems very much to be building that, which is interesting in and of itself. With movies, looks like Felicity Scott Foley has still got it in his new Italian rom-com, as it opened at number 1. Don't worry, that's his daughter in the poster, not his love interest. I was like, what is this movie? But okay, so anyway, he and his daughter gets an Italian villa to turn into like a bed and breakfast or something. And then, it turns into a Hallmark movie. But it did very well. Amy Schumer's new movie did not drop like a rock in its second weekend. I'm surprised. And yes, Mason Gooding is keeping his career alive, not just with Hard Eyes, still in theaters. That's because Love Hurts, as you're about to see, is being raced to digital. But also, that's him. That's him in a little-known 2024 movie that just hit Netflix and is finding an audience. Netflix, it's blown up so many movies and shows that couldn't get an audience somewhere else. All right, the same can't be said for the Witcher franchise, though, which has really struggled ever since Henry Cavill put it on the map, and then Henry Cavill took it off the map, right? He's like, I can make you and destroy you. But as you can see, Cameron Diaz remains the queen of Netflix right now, not just with Back in Action still charting here 5 weeks out, but all the Shrek movies are now available on Netflix, or at least 1 through 3. Did 4 really not chart? 4 was pretty bad. But Shrek 2 is the best one. Shrek 2 is still my favorite Shrek movie. I rewatched it about a year or so ago, and it really holds up. It's a great film. On digital, with Apple's charts, Mufasa is king. And Moana 2, speaking of queens, is queen here, as it's still in the top 10 as well. It ain't all bad news for Disney. And Dogman is right behind Mufasa. As family films, as you can see, continue to be one of the bright spots still in the theatrical space, as it otherwise struggles. And while Companion couldn't find an audience in theaters, at least its first week on digital is solid. And audiences are getting ready for the Oscars, which is a week from today, next Sunday. The Brutalist just hit digital, and that, Anora, Wicked, Conclave, and The Substance are all still doing very well. With Anora now still the new frontrunner, at least, especially, it could really win a lot of awards. It could really sweep. I think not only for Best Picture and Actress, but it's really competitive in the director and writing categories as well. The SAG Awards are tonight, right, on Netflix with Kristen Bell hosting, and actors are the biggest voting block in the Academy. Now, the way Oscar voting works is that you only vote for the nominees in your own category. Actors vote for actors, writers vote for writers, VFX artists vote for VFX. But once the nominees are chosen, everybody gets to vote on the winners, who wins each category. So again, the actors are the biggest block, so they have a lot of sway. So tonight, the SAG Awards don't cover every category. So tonight, you're going to get a clearer picture as to who's likely to win, not just all the acting categories, but everybody's really paying attention to Best Actress, but then also Best Picture as well. All right, last year for the Oscars, Hollywood still released some movies, but this year, that is not happening. The only major film coming out this coming weekend is Last Breath from Focus Features. Yikes! If Cap 4 has another significant drop next weekend, we'll talk about it, but that would be even more embarrassing. On digital this Tuesday, another Oscar contender drops right before the Oscars, a complete unknown, as well as Love Hurts, raced to digital because it was, as you might have noticed, Hard Eyes is still in the top 10, but Love Hurts dropped out. It's pretty bleak on streaming as well. There are no new streaming movies this week. What? There's like so little content in 2025. It's weird. But there's only one new streaming show, sports comedy Running Point with Kate Hudson from the creative team of Mindy Kaling and Ike Barinholtz. It's like, I don't know, what is it, Ted Lasso with just Rebecca? That's weird. That was a real combo situation on that show. But the bulk of new shows starting this week, and there's some juicy headlines here, which is why we're discussing it, but it's from network television. What? That's still around? That's right. Suits LA starts tonight on NBC, with the network trying to capitalize on the mega resurgence of Suits, the first Suits, on streaming back in 2023. Remember we were talking about that? It was months that was the top of the charts. But for some reason, well, I think it's because they didn't want to pay them, but they didn't bring back any of the original cast members. Maybe they were worried about how they were going to handle the Meghan Markle aspect, that she wouldn't be back. I think she might come back. They should have asked her. Maybe she wanted too much money, though. But the reviews are really, really bad. I don't think Suits LA is going to work out. Also, Stephen Amell shouldn't have said anti-strike comments. I'm sure that didn't win him any fans either. NBC also has something called Grosse Pointe Garden Society airing right after. Back in the day, that's what they called a programming block. While CBS brings back Survivor for season 48 this coming Wednesday. And they're already pushing season 50, which apparently fans will decide the structure of that show. But what an impressive run, how long Survivor has gone on. Do you still watch Survivor? A lot of people do. Mike White from the White Lotus was a contestant on Survivor. I used to watch Survivor, but I stopped watching, but I do still watch The Amazing Race. When's that coming back? And that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what kind of year are you now thinking Marvel is going to have? And why? Share those thoughts down below. And also, who do you think is going to win at the Oscars next Sunday? All right, share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.